Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video is the third and final part of the Fancy Horse pattern project. This was a Steve Good design. I made some modifications. The horse itself I did not modify, but the rest of it I did. I wanted to make a base for this horse that fit the style of the pattern. And what I chose was a 1-inch piece of black walnut. These are scraps that I have. I really can't use them for much of anything else. So that's what I went with. I was pleasantly surprised, but that's what I went with. And I wanted an oval base versus a rectangular base from Steve's pattern. So what I did was I went through some of his other patterns and found some oval projects that he had. And this one fit the horse itself. So it was perfect. I used it. It does say 1/4-inch backing board, but that's obviously not for this particular setup. I was just using it for the oval. This is what I go through every time I do a scroll saw pattern. So what you see here is what I do prior to making my videos and what you see in the videos. And I've mastered this to the point where this works out beautiful for me. This is the only part of the project for part 3 that I'm using the scroll saw. Unfortunately, not all aspects of woodworking projects will be just one particular tool that you use. Obviously, you saw me use the miter saw in the beginning to cut the piece of wood. I'm now cutting out the oval with the scroll saw. This went extremely well. Once again, I used a polar blade, and I was very happy with it. These polar blades work great on thick stock and hardwood. I think because of my excitement of using the scroll saw in the last 6 months, I never really showed any of the finishing things that are being done to a lot of the projects that I cut. And in this particular case, I wanted to follow through from start to finish and give you the complete package of what a project can entail when it comes to scroll saw work. It's not all scroll saw. Obviously, there's sanding involved. In this case, there's going to be some other tools that you'll see in a few minutes. But yes, this is really all part of the woodworking deal. So what I wanted to use was, I wanted to round the edge. So I picked the bit that I wanted to use. Don't ask me what it's called, but I really loved how it looked. I used my little hand palm router, and it cut the wood very nicely. Had a lot of sanding to do, and you're just going to see a lot of that part that goes into all these projects. Sometimes you need a router, sometimes you need a skill saw, sometimes you need the scroll saw, sometimes you need the table saw, but most of the time you need a lot of sanding. But I really wanted this base to look good. I started out with 120 grit sandpaper to get some of the rough edges off and smooth it down. A lot of it I go by feel. I've learned that from when my brother was doing collision work in his collision shop. You could always feel something versus seeing it a majority of the time, and the same goes for wood. What I did with this piece was I took the pattern off the top, and it came off in one piece, and I laid it on the counter below, and then I put some painter's tape on the bottom of the plaque here, and I super glued it to the counter. This gave me a very solid foundation to do the routing and the sanding. Didn't have to do anything. It did not move at all, which you don't want your piece to be all over the place. Don't skimp on the sanding. Take your time, take the time that's needed. It will definitely show itself in the end and be worth it when you're done. Now, of course, I wasn't close to being done with this, but what I did was I took some paint thinner, I forgot what, and I wiped this down. And I wanted to see what the wood was going to look like. Now you got to see what the horse looks like. But I want to get an idea of how rich and pretty this was. And that also tells me how well I did on my sanding, whether I needed to do more or not. And I tell you, boy, that is pretty. So what I'm doing now is I put the piece of painter's tape across the center because I'm going to use some nails to secure the horse to the base. I'm going to use them as you would dowels, but nails are easier for me to put into the wood. A little more forgiving because they're not as wide as a dowel would be. And I just had to be careful of what my placement was. Putting the tape on there, I can do all my drawing and not have to worry about the wood being affected. And the other nice thing about putting the tape there is when I do drill the holes, they are very clean on top. Because I'm not going straight through, I'm only going part way through on both pieces. Now to drill the holes, I used a carpenter square to help keep me lined up as straight as possible. That did work out quite well. I was surprised, believe it or not. Now these are nails. Obviously they're 10 miles too long. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring to see where I'm going to cut them. Yes, I did use safety glasses when I started cutting these, but my Dremel, with all the different tips that it has, it really is a blessing for doing all this stuff all at once. You just jump from one tip to another and get the job done. So when I cut these down, I left them a little bit longer, and they ended up being too long. But versus me drilling the holes deeper, I did later on in the video take off a little bit more of the nail, and it worked out just beautiful. I got my sanding tip on there so I can smooth out the rough edges. Tried to make a point, didn't work, so I made do without it. It did work out well. So I'm just test fitting, make sure everything lines up properly. I didn't want to go all the way down with it because I'm not even close to being done. I still have to put the finish on both pieces before I put it together. But in the meantime, I just wanted to make sure I was set up and lined up. Once I figured out where I wanted the holes in the feet, I pressed down on the nails. It gave me the placement. And then I just put a little bitty piece of painter's tape on the drill bit so I didn't go in too deep. This part is done. On the bottom side of this base, I'm drilling a 1-inch hole with a Forstner bit, approximately 1/4 inch deep. I have a wooden, I guess they call them coins, and I bought those from Steve Good. He made them for me. And it says handcrafted by Amy McFarland with a tree. I do like the tree of life. I tried different finishes, whitewash, a couple other things. I'm not even going to go into naming them. And my go-to boiled linseed oil. For some reason, I just couldn't get away from the boiled linseed oil, and I went with it. I'm so comfortable using it because I like the way it makes the wood look. Unfortunately, this is a long and tedious process with all these cuts. I actually went into every one of them with a paintbrush, halfway or better if I could, on this side, and then I flipped it over and had to do the other side as well. Now when I got to this side, I put it on a stand that I have so that the wet side is not on that paper. Sometimes the ink from that paper bleeds off, and I have to be careful of that. Once I'm done with the horse, I just lightly wipe it off on both sides to get a lot of that excess off, especially from doing it all in the cutouts, because you get a lot of buildup around the edges of the oil. So I just wipe it off briefly, lightly, and then I'll allow this and the base, you'll see that in a minute, to, I'll probably let them sit for maybe an hour, and then I'll wipe them off again and let them sit for 24 hours. This is the part I was really excited about. I can't tell you how much I love walnut. Yes, I can. I say it every time I make a video and I use it. It really is a beautiful thing. I did wait the allotted time I wanted to wait, but for video purposes, I'm wiping it off now. I wasn't able to film me actually attaching the horse to the base. I thought I turned on the camera, but I did not. So what you're going to see next is the actual finished piece. My lighting skills aren't the best, but it did turn out beautiful. I'm very, very happy with it, and I hope you enjoy it as well. If you made it this far into the video, I would like to thank you for supporting my channel. I will be having a live stream tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be doing a live scroll saw project on segmentation. What is that? I don't know. Let's find out together. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a blessed week. Take care.